Here's a story that might interest some of you, especially those of you that are living in the New York City area. Apparently, it's not good policy to teach your students about history and injustice. This story is relating to a Asian teacher who was teaching history regarding the Central Park Five. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, this was the case where well, let me back up. This was a case where a white woman was raped in Central Park. The police were notified immediately, and the 5 individuals were rounded up. They were all minors at the time, and they browbeat these kids without offering them or informing them that they could have their parents available, that they were entitled to an attorney, etc. And after, and I believe it was 12 hours of working on these kids, they browbeat confessions out of all of them by lying to them. And as you well know, if you watch any TV show or news show, the police can legally lie to you in order to get information out of you. So I'm going to play this particular clip, which is basically a follow-up. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that DNA evidence exonerated all 5 of these individuals, and the city of New York ended up paying them approximately $40 million in total as a restitution for what was done to them.
English teacher on the affluent side of New York City is suing the city's Department of Education and her former bosses, claiming she was fired for teaching about the Central Park 5 rape case. Gina Lee Walker says administrators at the High School for Arts, Imagination, and Inquiry urged her to be more balanced when teaching about the case, where 5 Black and Latino teenagers were arrested and convicted for the 1989 rape of a Central Park jogger. Decades later, they were exonerated and also settled with the city for some $40 million. Lee Walker says she was told the lessons could create riots. Now her former students and people all over social media are coming to her defense. That includes the Central Park 5. Joining me now via FaceTime from Harlem, New York, is Raymond Santana, a member of the Central Park 5, and of course on the panel, Ralph Chittums, George Jefferson Nuri, and Glenn Ivey. Wow. Firing her because she was teaching about this rape case, which I'm trying to figure out, are we not supposed to be teaching folks about history?
That's what I thought. I thought that, you know, in this day and age that we live in now, that, you know, this is what we're doing. We're preparing our students for life. We're preparing them to be independent thinkers and critical thinkers. And the Central Park jogger case is one of those historical cases that's part of New York City history. And why not teach it to our students to prepare them for what goes on in these city streets? And first of all, good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Doing great. Right. First of all, but when you hear this, oh, this is by you teaching this is going to lead to riots. Really?
Yeah. It was basically when I first heard that, it took me back to 1989 when we were given labels of urban terrorists, wilding, you know, when we was given these labels of being something other than human. And this is what you categorizing our students to be. These are our students. And what you're saying is that they don't have self-control, that they're going to riot and tear up the school. And I just thought that that was so ridiculous. You know, for a person who's involved in the education system and who has a love to teach our youth, you don't use those type of terms or that terminology towards our students.
We'll go to our panel here. I mean, look, teachers teach. And it is abundantly clear that you have people in New York who still refuse to deal with this story, deal with this case, and some folks still angered if they settle for $40 million.
Well, you know, Roland, I'm absolutely not surprised. When I first heard this story, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's how this story is going to get told. We have always told American history from the Disney version, as if finding out the truth of genocidal governments and George Washington did tell a lie, and this story was an injustice to not just these 5 people but to our entire criminal justice system. I am not surprised that watering down the story is how the New York City school system would want to handle it. What does surprise me is that in the name of this school is the word inquiry. So you want to call that, then you don't want to talk about the truth.
Mm-hmm. But also, one thing that the gentleman said is we want our children to be raised to be critical thinkers. Well, the educational system right now in this country isn't about producing critical thinkers. It's not about education, it's about indoctrination. We only want our children to learn how to take a test and how to pass a test. We don't want them to critically question those persons in authority. So I'm not surprised that New York City would squash this lesson out of fear that it would provoke critical thinking in the students.
And you know, the timing of this is interesting too, because this was a case that had such a major national impact that it drove part of the narrative in the '92 presidential cycle, which led to them increasing criminal penalties that put us where we are to, you know, now with the over criminalization and over incarceration. So to try and squash this story, I think, undermines part of what we need to be doing right now to roll back a lot of the over-prosecution and the over-criminalization that happened in part because of misinformation from cases like this.
Hey, Raymond, have you reached out to the teacher or her representatives to offer assistance?
Yes, we have. Me and Yusuf Salam, who's also one of the central parts of this case, we have reached out to the attorneys. We have been engaged with the attorneys. We have expressed our support for Ms. Lee Walker. Anything she needs, we'll be down at the courthouse on the next court date. And we just offer 100% support no matter what, because what happens is that we don't want this to cause a ripple effect where other teachers who are teaching their students about this case, or just teaching their students in general about what our youth go through and what we went through back in '89. We don't want this to hinder them or stop them from doing what they're doing, and that's teaching. So,
all right, man. Raymond Santana, we sure appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. We'll keep following this story as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Now, my question is this: where the hell is the New York City Teachers Union, which is one of the most powerful unions in the country? Where were they in support of this teacher? You know, this is just straight out racism against the black guys that were involved here, and also this lady was Asian and they didn't support her. So that just goes to show you that if you're a minority, I don't care if you're black, Hispanic, Asian, Muslim, etc., if you're going up against the quote-unquote majority, you got a major issue. So I'm just bringing this to your attention so that you can see what's going on. Doesn't matter if it's in, you know, some little town in rural Louisiana or in quote-unquote Gotham, New York City. Racism is alive and well, and there is a real attempt to rewrite and whitewash history so that the majority doesn't look as bad as they truly are.